for a minute before we go to our next package to understand from each of you in your respective disciplines and areas your perspective on the challenge facing the government of Trinidad and Tobago come the budget of 2020-2021. Shivanan, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so the Minister of Finance, they had a presentation last week, Monday, actually, where they spent some time outlining the challenges, the fiscal challenges the country faces, particularly from a fiscal standpoint. So it clearly, we all want to see our standards of living sustained as much as possible. And a big part of that is sustaining government spending. And therefore, raising sustainable revenue outside of the energy sector will be critical. And I think that really there was never a good time to implement property tax, and arguably this perhaps is the time to implement property tax, because property tax is not just a tax. It's one of the bedrock taxes alongside value-added tax and payroll taxes that will pay public servant salaries.
From your perspective, this was one of the items brought up in the budget spotlight that took place last week at the Hyatt Regency, where the government sought to more or less give a good account as to what it is facing in order to map out the road ahead.
That's correct.
There is, of course, been a lot said about property tax in pros and cons across the society. But this, as you have pointed out, is one of a package that is associated with every citizen's involvement in contributing to the well-being of the country. Correct. In other words, we're in this together.
Yes, absolutely. And the thing is that we need the consistent cash flow in addition to just adding, let's say, a 5%, let's say we add tax or a rate on the corporation tax. That's a more volatile tax where it could go up and down with profits. Property tax is a more consistent tax which we would need to sustain recurrent spending.
Now, it's not an activity or an approach that sits in isolation.
Correct.
What will happen with energy prices? What will happen with any financial aid that comes to Trinidad and Tobago from the standpoint of being able to borrow, the Heritage and Stabilization Fund and its ability, our ability to have financial cover for the country over the next 9 months or so. So this is not a case of it's a do or die tax, but literally it's an attempt by the government to create an obligation on the part of citizens of Trinidad and Tobago into making a difference to the country from today go forward.
Correct. And the only real difference between property tax and the other taxes we are all accustomed to is that we are accustomed to taxes withheld, such as VAT. You buy groceries, you don't think about the VAT that's inside those groceries. You buy a car, you buy an SUV, you pay $100,000 in tax when you buy a new SUV, but you don't think about it. This is the only difference between those taxes and the property tax is that you will have to write a check. So it brings it into your consciousness. But relative to other taxes, is actually perhaps the most minor of taxes that you would interact with.
I'll take the cue from you that if there's any time that the Minister of Finance and the government could consider a tax associated with properties, residences, this is the time.
I would say so because of the fact that the volatility of the other income sources is what's catching up with us now. That we have depended for a long time on volatile sources such as petroleum taxes in particular, which is driven by things beyond our control, the prices of energy and our ability to produce at a given point in time.
Yes.
And that is what is catching up with us, and property tax will give us more control.
Shivanan, thank you very much for the perspective. Amilcar, I'll bring you in at this point